Hey, RAD107. All right, we're on week 4 already. Crazy. So today we're going to be going over chapter 3, and by now we've done chapters 1, 2, and 3. So next week, yep, we got an exam. So today we'll go through the lecture real quick. I'll go through it briefly with you guys. I'll put the video in here. You'll have the PowerPoint here. Highly suggest you focus on the study sheet, and then you guys can take the quiz this week. After you've taken the quiz this week, after you've done all that, next week we'll open the exam from Monday until Sunday night, and that'll be your period when you can take it. And it'll be on chapters 1, 2, and 3, and it will be online. Any questions, don't hesitate to email me. All right, so let's jump right into it. We're going to be talking about digital radiographic image processing and manipulation. So whether we're talking about PSP or FPD, okay, when we're talking about like the CR or DR, after the X-ray photons have been converted into electrical signals, these signals are available for processing and manipulation. So we have pre-processing, which takes place in the computer where the algorithm determines the image histogram. Then we have post-processing, which is done by the technologist after various user functions. Post-processing is where you can window, level, add markers, etc. So the PSP reader takes the main jobs are finding the collimation edges and eliminating scatter out of the collimation. Information within the collimated areas is the signal used for image data. So this is the actual reader. Okay. The failure of the system to find the collimation edges can result in incorrect data collection. The image could be too dark or too bright. And equally important is centering, so that you get the body part on the imaging plate. That ensures that the appropriate recorded densities are located. And if you don't do that, then the image could be too bright or too dark if you don't center on the cassette. Histogram, very important term. What's a histogram? A histogram is a graphical representation of exposure values collected by the imaging plate. So the imaging plate is going to collect the exposure values based on your X-ray and attenuation and all that. And it's going to, a histogram represents those values on a graph. The value of each tone is represented on the horizontal axis, and the number of pixels in each tone is represented on the vertical axis. The values to the left are darker, and as the tones vary towards the right, they get brighter. So this is what a histogram looks like. Okay, so we have the, this is the X-ray. This is what the X-ray looks like as far as the image. This is what the histogram looks like. So this is the attenuation. So we said that on the number of pixels is on the vertical axis. So this is how many pixels, okay? And the values on the, so the value of each tone is on the horizontal axis. So this is the number of pixels, and this is the value of each tone. So the digital number is here, and the number of pixels is here. And the farther, the values to the left are darker, and the values to the right are brighter. All right? So this is the lowest attenuation, which is the lungs, so they're the darkest. This is the highest attenuation, which is the mediastinum, so they're the brightest. So this is what a histogram of a chest X-ray looks like. It's a graphical representation of that image. Image sampling. Image sampling is the measurement of the beam intensity on the detector. Okay, you really want to know what image sampling is. The measurement of the beam intensity on the detector. The plate is scanned, the value is placed on each pixel, and a histogram is generated from the image data. So the histogram identifies all the densities of the imaging plate in the graph format. We said the x-axis is related to exposure, right? The more you go to the right, the brighter it is. The more you go to the left, the darker it is. The y-axis displays the number of pixels for each exposure. So here's another histogram. So when you have low energy kVp, you get a wider histogram. High energy, you get a narrower histogram. So if your pixels have a value of 1, 2, 3, and 4 for a specific exposure, the histogram is going to show the frequency of each of those values, an actual number of values. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about this here. So each shape of each depending on the body part, you're going to have a different shape of the histogram. So the shape of a histogram for a chest x-ray is going to be different from a knee x-ray. So you really need to make sure that you choose the right anatomical region before exposing the patient. Why is that important? Because remember, the histogram comes after you take the exposure. So why does it matter how you select it? Well, what you select on the computer is what the computer is expecting the histogram to look like. Okay? When you select the chest x-ray, and the computer is going to expect the histogram to look a certain way. If it looks different, that's where your image runs kind of weird. That's why you may have seen people say, "Oh, this looks weird. Let's run this chest X-ray under a foot and see if it looks better." That's kind of like a hack that they do. You really shouldn't do that if you've done the X-ray right. But sometimes it will bring in different or seemingly looking better results. All right, analog versus digital. We talked about this a little bit. Analog images are images that we can see. They're considered continuous images. So example of that is a black and white photograph of a chest x-ray. Digital images cannot be seen. They're numerical representations of the image. The formation requires a digital computer, and the data must be in digital format. So ADC, or analog to digital converter, is crucial in converting continuous analog signals into digital. So if you have a digital system, okay, you have different components. Number one is the analog, which would be like the X-ray scanner, the CT scanner, or sorry, the X-ray machine. The ADC converts the X-ray data, the analog data, into digital data. The computer processes that data, okay? But now we can't see the data anymore because it's digital, right? So then after the data is processed, it is converted again with a DAC into another analog image, which we can see. The Nyquist, or sampling theorem, states that when sampling or measuring an analog signal, the measurements must be taken frequently. If too few pixels are sampled, the result is a lack of resolution. Memorize this. So here's an undersampled image compared to a correctly sampled image. See this this is called aliasing artifact. The number of conversions in a photostimulable phosphor plate, electron to light, light to digital information, digital analog signal results in loss of detail. Skip over this, skip over that. So for this is perfect where you want to look here. Nyquist theorem. So if you go through these here, they'll make a lot more sense looking at them in the table, because you're comparing the FPD and the PSP as far as Nyquist theorem. So aliasing, we said, occurs in a digital image when the spatial frequency, when there's not enough sampling, and also when the spatial frequency is greater than the Nyquist frequency. Memorize that just in case, but mainly you want to know when there's not enough samples. So here's aliasing. Results in a Moyer effect. Kind of looks like the grid error effect where there's lines. Automatic rescaling is when an exposure is greater than or less than what's needed to produce an image. Automatic rescaling occurs in an effort to display the pixels from the area of interest. All right, lookup table. Lookup table is a histogram of the luminescence value derived during image reconstruction. What the heck does that mean? So basically, a lookup table is used to cross-reference the information from the pixels to see what those values really should be. So all the pixels are changed to a new gray value. The image, basically, if the digital value is this, then it should be this shade of gray. It's like a lookup table. The rest of this should be pretty self-explanatory, so go through it. Quality control functions of a workstation, image processing, contrast. Look through these. So you do want to know that digital systems have greater dynamic range than film screen systems. Contrast enhancement in digital input to an image with appropriate brightness, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so contrast manipulation, basically window and leveling. This is the same image. One has been manipulated, the other has not. So spatial frequency always refers to sharpness. Okay. The digital image processing parameters allow us to choose the structure to be enhanced control the degree of enhancement, and adjust how much edge enhancement or how sharp an image is. Let's see what else we got here. So edge enhancement makes sharper images, and it's also known as high-pass filtering. Smoothing is also known as low-pass filtering, and it results from averaging the frequency of each pixel with surrounding pixels to kind of make it, I guess you could say, less sharp. But main benefit of it is it gets rid of the noise. It's good for viewing small structures like fine bone tissues. A lot of time when you're looking at like a really sharp or really small structures like the wrist, if there's any kind of noise, it's hard to kind of see fractures and things like that. So smoothing will help with that. So processing system, you can window level, remove the background, image orientation, stitching. So go through the rest of this, pretty straightforward. Window leveling, what it is, difference between window level and window width, removing the background, turning the image, stitching, just connecting multiple images together, annotating, like adding the markers and stuff, magnification, and then image management, which is basically sending and changing the demographics of the patient, like the name, ID number, etc., and then sending to PACS and archive. That's pretty much it. So nothing too crazy here. A lot of I know fun and exciting stuff with digital imaging. Hopefully you guys get this. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask as always. So go ahead, take the quiz when you're done with this, and then be ready to take the exam next week and send over any questions you guys have. See you then.